Hi, my name's Cliff Welty. I'm so glad to be with you today because I'm talking about one of my favorite subjects, and that's art. I love to look at art, I love to do art, and I love to talk about it as well. So I'm glad to be with you. Today we're going to talk a little bit about preparation of your ground. There's several different grounds that artists can use. The ones that I primarily use is I use panel on some large pieces, and it's basically prepared the same way as you would prepare linen. The first thing you would do is use some kind of an animal glue to size your panel. When I use panel, I usually use Luan, which is a very thin plywood-like panel. You can get it almost anywhere. But it has some drawbacks because it can warp and buckle. Mainly I use linen. This is some good stuff to use because it lasts for hundreds of years if you take care of it and prepare it properly. The first thing you want to do with your linen is put it onto a stretcher bars, and that's going to be taken care of in a later video. But once you get it on the stretcher bars and it's already on your stretcher, you have to size it first. Use an animal glue, a white glue, water it down a little bit, and coat the canvas well with that, even the edges, and then let that dry. Sand it a little bit with some, about 100 grit sandpaper will work, and then you can put another coat on there. Repeat that process. Next, after you get your sizing on, you want to apply your gesso. Use a good quality gesso. If you use a good quality gesso, it's going to come to you and it's going to be a little thick, pretty thick and heavy. So you want to thin that gesso down just a little bit, and to make it where when you put it on there, it will relax and flow out and be very smooth on your linen. When you're thinning your gesso, you want to experiment with it and add just a little bit of water at a time. Don't do the whole gallon at one time, but put it in another container and thin it down just a little bit with water. And the way you can tell when that gesso is at just the right consistency is when it sings. Now, you may not have heard of this before, but that gesso, when it's at the right consistency and you dip your stick that you're stirring it with, you dip it up and pull it up, the gesso will pour down in there and it'll make a noise, and that's called singing. So when it gets to that consistency, you're right on. That's when it's ready to use. You apply your gesso in a thin coat, get the edges real well, and allow that to dry. Go in one direction. When that's dry, depending on the humidity in the air and the temperature, it'll take a different amount of time from 1 to 3 hours to dry. Once it's dry, then you go back in with your 100 grit sandpaper, sand it. Don't sand too much, just knock the top, the high parts off of it and any ridges, and then you want to apply another coat of gesso. You go in the opposite direction with your gesso. Make sure you get your edges. The first 3 coats that you use on the gesso, make sure you get your edges all the way around. Then after that, you can just do the top surface every time. You want to go different direction each time. I usually, because I do portraits and I want a very fine, smooth, flat surface, I usually apply from 8 to 12 coats, sanding in between each coat. Very important. You get a really fine, nice surface to apply the paint. Once you have that completely gessoed, then you can come back with a ground color. I love to use Indian yellow. Indian yellow is an excellent color to use for your undercoat, because it after you paint on top of it, it brings a luminosity to the painting. And some of your old masters use this technique to bring out the highlights in their paintings. Rembrandt was one that used that. It was a trick of his. You want to take your Indian yellow, which, by the way, is an unusual pigment because it's made from the urine of cows. So if you don't mind having cow urine on your painting before you start, go ahead and use it. I like to use it myself. It works very well. And it's a little bit more expensive color, but it lasts a long time. So a tube of that will last you a long time. Use a good quality one. You can get a good one from Lucas, or this is not Indian yellow, but Charvin makes an excellent Indian yellow as well. When you get those colors on there, when you get your paint on there, you want to thin it down to a really liquid consistency. Use a good quality thinner, thin it down real well, and then just coat the canvas. That will dry pretty quick if you thin it, and that will give you your ground coat. Then you're ready to start painting from there. So those are a couple of tips on how to prepare that canvas for painting. It's good to use, you'll find that if you use raw linen, Centurion makes a raw unprimed linen that's excellent, and it works very well, and it just prepares your whole mind for your painting that you're going to use. You're investing your time in stretching that canvas and preparing the surface. All that time you're thinking about exactly what you're going to put on that canvas, so it prepares your mind for the artwork that comes. So I highly recommend that. If you're in a crunch for time, you can use the already primed Centurion, which is excellent. It's a lightweight, portrait grade linen canvas that works excellent. And you know, it's very strong too. I've made one painting that was 14 feet tall and 7 feet wide using that Centurion pre-prime linen, and it worked excellent. It was really nice because work that big is generally pretty heavy, but this one was lightweight, portable, and worked excellent. Or you can use the pre-stretched Centurion linen canvas, works excellent as well. So there's just a few thoughts about how to prepare your ground for painting. I'd like to invite you also to view some of my artwork. There's a little bit of it behind me, but if you'd like to see more of it, you can go to my website, art-iguana.com. And you're welcome to go there and leave any comments about my work. Also, there's my YouTube address is Gallery Iguana 409. There you'll see about 65 different videos on cultural events and art openings in South Texas. Or if you're in the neighborhood of Brownsville, you can come by my studio at 654 North Expressway, Brownsville, Texas, or give me a phone call at 956-266-4799. Thanks for taking time to learn a little bit about how to put your ground together to get ready for your artwork.